This new edition of MedaWeek that is taking place between November 17th to 19th, starting from today, and to open up this major event where we are starting out with the 9th Summit for Renewable and Green Energy. So during both of these sessions, we will discuss renewable energy, innovation, economy, South-South cooperation, and financing. So this edition in particular, was meant to have an African dimension. So we will also discuss Mediterranean and African partnerships well beyond North Africa. And we will also discuss the different projects that we can also develop between both continents, etc.
It means, of course, that it is of public interest to develop renewables, but it means above all, as COP has taught us, that we cannot only count on public intervention to drive a sector towards a public utility objective. The real stake here is making renewables profitable, income generating. And this is easier said than done, because if the technology starts to be there, it is proven that some renewable sources are now more efficient and even cheaper than traditional fossil sources. To make them profit producing, they need to be connected with large enough markets. And this introduces what we consider as UFM the highest possible stake in this region, which is interconnection. We need South-South interconnection.
I have to say that when we see our position, we have important renewable energy resources. Maybe then more wind in the north, more sun in the south, but there is clearly a huge potential. We have an experience regarding the deployment of important renewable energy power plants, and we saw that it's proven, it works. We have the proximity, connectivity, which we have to strengthen. Definitely, we need more North-South cooperation and more South-North cooperation. RSN is focusing more in the topics which will play more and more an important role if we would like to decarbonize our economies. We speak about renewable energy, we speak about then energy efficiency, we have then water resources, we have new topics like the development of the e-mobility. I think we have an opportunity to build a new model of energy partnership based on renewable energies as well as on green hydrogen.
So RICRI, we supported many Arab African countries in developing their national energy efficiency and renewable energy action plans, in particular Egypt, Sudan, Djibouti, Somalia, and recently Libya. Each country has its own context and specificities, as you know, which entail considering innovation on the policy options and regulatory framework to be adopted. Obviously, we cannot have one-size-fits-all approach, and we need to innovate also in the ecosystem for a conducive business environment. There is a clear need to build the capacity of officials and state actors on different technical, financial, social, economical, and environmental issues. RICRI, we collaborated with the Africa Renewable Energy Initiative, in particular in capacity development over the last 3 years, building on the deep North African country experiences, in sustainable energy policies, as well as what is related to regulatory, legal, and contractual frameworks for private investment. And finally, we signed an MOU with the Rest for Africa Foundation, and we'll soon announce a training on microgrids, which we see as of high importance for the development of the power systems in Africa.
When we speak about the Mediterranean region, at the Middle East Solar Industry Association, we're focused on member companies in the North Africa side and the developments happening there. And I think the situation is definitely a bit different in the European space. The regulations are still needing work. We still can't really talk about net metering, about tax credits, about subsidies in all the countries. And the methods to store energy are still unaffordable for these markets. I think being positioned as they are around the Saharan desert and having this special position, these countries benefit from this natural gift that is the Sahara Desert, and it makes it an ideal place for solar projects. So I read this news recently that the research imagined that it might be possible to transform the world's largest desert, which is the Sahara, into a giant solar farm, and it would be capable of meeting 4 times the world's current energy demand. So I think that's very ambitious.
We are on the right path. Now, what we need to put all hands on deck, and especially with renewable energy. I mean, personally, as an expert that has been studying this field for quite a few years in the region, it's important to diversify, and we cannot only target renewable energy. There's also energy efficiency. Because with the calculations that we've done at IRENA and the different scenarios that we have developed with the European Union for the Gulf countries, with the increase with the consumption of increase of consumption of demand, I mean, it varies between 5 to 8%. For the low-income countries, it's a little less. And now with the targets that have been announced, we cannot meet these objectives, because this 5 to 8% increase per year is not enough to allow us to meet these targets.
We know that the European Green Deal offers a great opportunity for the South, and we know that the EU's Recovery and Resilience Facility, and I'm actually this week here in Brussels discussing with them all these issues, offers a great opportunity. There is a new Mediterranean policy framework that offers technical and financial cooperation instruments, and we, the Center for Mediterranean Integration, would like to work with them, and of course the UFM and all the other actors, to see how this framework will be implemented in the South. It would be so beneficial for Morocco, for example. The investments in green hydrogen have been mentioned, for Algeria to diversify the economy, to Egypt to pursue their current efforts on energy research. There are many, many opportunities for countries in the South if we act all together. We need to continue collaborating. That's why events like MedaWeek are very, very important, because we're going to need everybody's contribution.
It is imperative for our region to create the financial and technological condition to accelerate the decarbonization of the economy, as well as the phase out of coal. In this respect, promoting greener renewable energies is not just a goal, it's a must to ensure a dignified life to ourselves and for our future. At present, despite the progress made, renewable energy remain marginal in the energy mix of the Euro-Mediterranean region. Believe that a number of elements are responsible for this condition: the extensive ongoing use of subsidies on non-renewable energy sources, as we mentioned before, the lack of policy coordination among Euro-Mediterranean energy governing bodies, the fragility of energy infrastructure and electricity grids in some Mediterranean countries. However, the exploitation of green technology represents an invaluable opportunity for our region.
If we take a look at the supply of solar panels or wind farms, and well, we will be creating an industry. This industry will create jobs that don't exist and that couldn't have existed if this industry didn't exist. So it's not a trend or a movement from one industry to the next. I mean, these are very specific jobs. And we will also develop a technology that will necessarily call on research institutions, and universities. So we will be creating an entire ecosystem around this. And for the time being, and again, on my humble advice, is very much lacking in the Mediterranean region. There are also a few initiatives that have developed here and there in the Mediterranean region. Let's see, for example, the case of Morocco, where we saw the certain industries that did not have an opportunity to express themselves and to develop, and they were practically extinct. And for those that still remain are struggling. And these forms of cooperation also have a co-development nature. And for instance, I can mention Djibouti, where we have developed a 450 megawatt project, and so there's also a solar project for the 100 megawatts, and which is at the final phase. And this is all part of the umbrella of South-South cooperation, the concept of sharing know-how or skills transfer, or to multiply efforts to accelerate this dynamic is at the heart of this cooperation, bilateral cooperation momentum that's initiated by Morocco. Also aware that renewable energy suffers from intermittence, and the more we broaden the spectrum of the grid with the strengthening of these power exchanges between countries, well, the more we reduce this penalty relating to the intermittence of renewable energies. And so the more we store in other people's grids. And so it's important to have this holistic approach and to have regulation, tax incentives and regulatory incentives, and to have to be able to integrate all of these policies. And so, for example, in power or renewable energy, where it's important to focus on the elimination of fossil fuels and structuring, and to have adapted measures to continue heading in this direction, and also lead to more systemic transformations that involve educational policies that support research and development, also the collaboration between industry and research institutions. It is also important to minimize the cost, the socioeconomic cost of this transition from fossil fuels, and this requires the involvement of different stakeholders, and the transition for workers and the industry needs to be facilitated by opening opportunities and providing new opportunities and providing new professional opportunities.
The facts are clear. We need to engage properly the private sector. Would it be the big companies? Would it be the small ones? In differentiated responsibility, but where they have to come in. And one thing that we have to induce and push as much as we can is eco-innovation, an innovation that is deeply rooted, if we want to be more resilient and competitive. We are not doing it enough in the Mediterranean region. I'm sorry to say that, even if I left it 15 years ago, I keep on following very closely in the Mediterranean. We are not doing enough on eco-innovation, despite the thousands of cases, but we don't have the critical mass to make an impact now. The market is not following and will not follow. Still, we have to go on voluntary initiative and move further. And the government should provide the right capacity building, the enabling capacity, and the policy framework with the resources, and let the small and medium enterprises and local communities do the right work.
I think it's a very timely thing to discuss green energy today, but you've also picked the right region. And there's a deeper reason behind that. I'm deeply convinced that the Mediterranean is going to play the critical role in making the story about greening and decarbonizing societies and economies a success. And that is because the Mediterranean is going to be the bridge between huge demand centers in Northern Europe and the places on the African continent where we have the opportunity to generate that green energy and transport it to Europe. And the countries of the Mediterranean, on both sides of the Mediterranean Sea, they have a special role because they have both of these features together. They are demand centers, they have increasing and growing industries, but at the same time, they're also going to play an important role with pilot projects.
As everyone knows, the challenge has been to put in place the $100 billion per annum in climate financing. The highest figure ever reached, as per the statistics shown in COP26, is not more than 70 something billion dollars. So if it's 78, 79. And that was the peak. That was unsustained. How do we make sure that we bring in additional stakeholders into financing this gap? We have philanthropists, we have NGOs, we have non-state players that are very active in Europe, in North America, in the developed world, that are existent in Africa. We need to make sure that it's a win-win for everyone, not only for export-oriented projects or export-oriented mentality. We need to make sure that it's inclusive, because this is how it becomes sustainable.